Pete Kowalski was elbow-deep in grease under the food court ventilation system when reality started bleeding purple at the edges. The maintenance tunnels of Titan Station weren't exactly prime real estate, but they were Pete's domain, a maze of pipes, wires, and the kind of honest work that kept a man grounded after his marriage fell apart faster than a meteor in atmosphere. The temperature dropped 30 degrees in 2 seconds. Emergency lights flickered as something vast pressed against the fabric of space-time itself. Pete's wrench clattered to the floor as he rolled out from under the machinery, his work coveralls now steaming in the sudden cold. "Oh, come on," he muttered, grabbing his toolkit. "Not tonight. I've got 17 more ventilation units to—" Wall dissolved. Not exploded, not torn dissolved, like sugar in cosmic coffee. Through the breach stepped something that made Pete's brain hurt to look at directly. The Shadow Maw was legend-made flesh, a writhing mass of midnight and starlight that existed in too many dimensions at once. Its mere presence caused the station's artificial gravity to hiccup, and Pete felt his teeth ache from psychic feedback. 3 systems. The creature had made 3 entire star systems uninhabitable. Fleet Command had classified encounters with it as extinction-level events. And now it was standing in Pete's maintenance tunnel, somehow managing to look sheepish. Pete said, his voice cracking like a teenager's. "You're not supposed to be here. There's probably a form you need to fill out or something." The Shadow Maw's countless eyes, each one a swirling galaxy in miniature, focused on him with uncomfortable intensity. When it spoke, its voice was the sound of solar winds carrying messages between dying worlds. "Pete Kowalski of Earth," it intoned, reality bending around each syllable. "I require your assistance." Pete blinked. "How do you know my name?" "I know many things. I know you were married for 7 years. I know she left because you spent more time with your work than with her. I know you understand loneliness." The admission hung in the recycled air like a confession. Pete found himself staring at this cosmic horror, this destroyer of worlds, and seeing something painfully familiar in its infinite eyes. The same look he'd seen in his bathroom mirror every morning since Martha packed her bags. "Okay," Pete said slowly, setting down his toolkit. "I'm listening." Pete's apartment was a testament to bachelor dysfunction. Pizza boxes forming archaeological layers on the coffee table, laundry achieving sentience in the corners, and exactly 1 clean mug that said, "Galaxy's okayest maintenance guy." The Shadow Maw had somehow compressed itself to merely room-filling proportions, though its presence still made the walls weep condensation and the houseplants spontaneously evolve. "So let me get this straight," Pete said, pouring his last decent coffee into 2 mismatched cups. "You're basically immortal. You've accidentally genocided entire civilizations just by existing. And now you're lonely?" "The nature of my being precludes companionship," the Shadow Maw explained, its voice now modulated to merely unsettling whisper instead of reality-shattering boom. "For eons, I have wandered the void, watching lesser species flee in terror." "Yeah, I can see how that might get old." Pete sipped his coffee, studying the creature. "But something changed?" The Shadow Maw's form rippled with what might have been embarrassment. 3 rotations ago, I encountered another." "Another what?" "Another. Like me, the Void Art, she is." The creature paused, and Pete could swear he saw starlight blush across its surface. "She is magnificent. Her song reduces matter to its component atoms. Her dance reverses the flow of time in local pockets. When she moves through dark matter, IT becomes art." Pete nearly choked on his coffee. "You've got it bad." "I do not understand." This phrase, "you're smitten," head over heels, completely gone. Pete grinned despite himself. "Buddy, you're in love." The Shadow Maw's form contracted slightly. "Love, yes, I have observed this phenomenon among lesser beings, but when I attempted to approach her, she fled. What exactly did you do? I manifested in her presence and announced, "Greetings, fellow destroyer. Your apocalyptic beauty fills me with desires that would shatter reality." Then I consumed a nearby moon to demonstrate my virility. Pete stared at him. Oh my God. Was this incorrect? Dude, we need to work on your game. Asterisk, the next few days transformed Pete's maintenance schedule into something resembling an interdimensional finishing school. Between fixing broken recyclers and unclogging atmospheric processors, he found himself coaching a cosmic entity on the finer points of not being absolutely terrifying. Okay, first lesson, Pete said, standing in the station's abandoned observation deck where the Shadow Mall could practice without accidentally traumatizing civilians. You need to work on your entrance. No more dissolving walls. But IT is efficient. It's also scary as hell. Try knocking. The Shadow Mall considered this. Its form solidified into something vaguely humanoid, if humans were made of living starlight and bad decisions. It approached an imaginary door and raised what might have been a hand. The resulting knock shattered every piece of glass in a 50-meter radius. Better, Pete lied. We'll work on volume control later. Now, about your pickup lines, ... Dr. Sarah Chun, the station's xenobiologist, had initially assumed Pete was having a psychotic breakdown when he'd approached her for dating advice for a cosmic horror. But after witnessing the Shadow Mall demonstrate its ability to speak in 17 languages simultaneously while braiding space-time into flower patterns, she'd become an enthusiastic consultant. The key, she explained during one of their clandestine meetings in the lab, is showing genuine interest in her as an individual, not just as another destroyer of worlds. Should I inquire about her hobbies? The Shadow Mall asked, accidentally causing a nearby plant to evolve sentience. That's a start. What does she like to do for fun? She enjoys turning binary star systems into abstract sculptures and composing symphonies from the death screams of supernovas. Pete and Sarah exchanged glances. Well, Pete said slowly, at least you have something in common. Commander Torres, the station's military liaison, had been harder to convince. It wasn't until the Shadow Mall had helped resolve a critical malfunction in the station's fusion reactor by gently persuading the atoms to behave more cooperatively that he'd agreed to assist with Operation Cosmic Cupid. Strategic assessment, Torres announced during one of their planning sessions. Your current approach is too direct, too aggressive. You're treating this like a conquest instead of a courtship. I do not understand the difference. Conquest is about taking. Courtship is about giving. What could you offer her that no one else in the universe could? The Shadow Mall pondered this, its form cycling through several dimensions of contemplation. Understanding, it finally said, I could offer her understanding. Pete smiled. Now we're getting somewhere. The rendezvous point was a dying binary system on the rim of civilized space, far enough from inhabited worlds that if things went catastrophically wrong, they'd only destroy empty vacuum. Pete had insisted on chaperoning, despite the very real possibility that he might cease to exist on a quantum level. Remember, he said, floating in his environmental suit near the Shadow Mall's hovering form, be yourself, but like the best version of yourself, the version that doesn't accidentally end civilizations. I am nervous, the Shadow Mall admitted, its usual cosmic confidence replaced by something touchingly vulnerable. What if she still finds me repulsive? Then, she's not the right cosmic entity for you, Pete said firmly. But I don't think that's going to happen. You've been practicing. They'd rehearsed this moment dozens of times. A Shadow Mall had learned to modulate its presence, to exist without warping local space-time into impossible geometries. It had practiced conversation starters that didn't involve discussions of entropy or the heat death of the universe. Most importantly, it had learned to listen. The void heart arrived like a whispered secret, her form materializing from the darkness between stars. Where the shadow maw was chaos and fury, she was elegant destruction, a ballet dancer made of dark matter and malevolent grace. Her very existence made nearby space fold in on itself like origami, and Pete felt his suit's sensors overload trying to process what they were seeing. "Void heart," the shadow maw said, its voice carefully controlled. "Thank you for agreeing to meet." She regarded him with eyes like collapsed stars. "Shadow maw, you have changed. I have been learning about myself. A BOUT connection." Pete watched from a respectful distance as the two cosmic entities began to orbit each other in a careful dance. The shadow maw asked about her recent work, a nebula she'd been sculpting for the past millennium. The void heart inquired about his travels through the outer rim. They spoke of art, of creation through destruction, of the loneliness of being, the only ones of their kind. "I have something for you," the shadow maw said eventually. With careful precision, it began to weave strands of dark energy together, creating something Pete had never seen before. A flower made of pure entropy, beautiful, and terrible, and absolutely unique. The void heart's form shimmered with what might have been surprise. "For me? I wanted to create something that had never existed before, something as singular as you." Pete found himself grinning inside his helmet. The big guy was actually pulling it off. 6 months later, Pete was back to his regular maintenance duties, though his life had become considerably more interesting. The shadow maw and void heart had become an item of development that had initially terrified the Galactic Council until they realized that having two cosmic entities in a stable relationship was actually preferable to having two lonely, destructive forces wandering the universe separately. "So how are things going with her?" Pete asked during one of the shadow maw's visits. The creature had learned to manifest in Pete's apartment without damaging the structural integrity of the building, which Pete counted as a major victory. "Wonderfully complex," the shadow maw replied, its form now a comfortable middle ground between cosmic horror and houseguest. "We have been collaborating on joint projects. Last week, we turned a dead system into a memorial garden for extinct species." "That's beautiful, man, really. She wishes to meet you properly, to thank you for your guidance." Pete nearly dropped his coffee mug. "She wants to meet me? The thing that could accidentally erase me from existence wants to have a chat?" "She has been practicing restraint. As have I. We have learned that love requires gentleness." The meeting took place in the same observation deck where they practiced conversation skills. The void heart materialized with far more care than Pete had expected, her form compressed into something merely awe-inspiring rather than sanity-destroying. "Pete Kowalski," she said, her voice like the whisper of solar winds. "The shadow maw has told me of your wisdom." "I just shared some basic relationship advice," Pete said, feeling absurdly humble in the presence of a force of nature that could restructure matter with a thought. "You taught him something we immortals rarely learn," she continued. "That vulnerability is not weakness. That to be truly connected to another, one must first be willing to be changed by them." Pete looked between the two cosmic entities, seeing something in their interaction that reminded him of every good relationship he'd ever witnessed. Despite their godlike power, despite their ability to reshape reality itself, they were still fundamentally similar to every couple he'd ever known, learning to navigate each other's quirks, finding ways to support each other's dreams, building something together that was greater than the sum of its parts. "You know what?" Pete said, raising his coffee mug in a toast. "Here's to love in all its forms, even the universe-threatening kind." The shadow maw and void heart joined the toast, their combined presence causing local space-time to shimmer with what could only be described as happiness. Outside the viewport, stars seemed to twinkle with approval, and Pete couldn't help but think that sometimes the most important job in the universe wasn't maintaining life support systems or fixing broken machinery. Sometimes it was just reminding someone or something that everyone deserves to be loved, no matter how different they might be. And if a divorced maintenance worker from Earth could help two cosmic entities find happiness together, well, maybe there was hope for everyone. Asterisk.